Welcome to SATV News. This is Anaf Hussain with our headlines. Quick election crucial to save people, says Mirza Fakhrul, urges not to create further division, raising demands for referendum and PR. Australia pledges continued support to EC ahead of election. Australian Minister for International Development calls on EC. Deadly clashes again at Pakistan-Afghanistan border. Over 12 civilians killed in Pakistani attack, says Taliban. Now, in details. Bangladesh National Party Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir today called upon all not to create further divisions, raising the demands for referendum and PR, rather to help hold the upcoming election to save the countryman. Let's hold the election quickly to save the people, he said, while exchanging views with the people of parliamentary seat Thakurga 1 at Gararia Union President in the district. Mirza Fakhrul and called upon all the political parties not to create divisions or do movement over the issues of referendum and proportional representatives. The senior BNP leader said that who are demonstrating on the roads over the issues, their intention is not good. Australian Minister for International Development and Multicultural Affairs Dr. Annie on Wednesday pledged her country's continued support to the election commission ahead of the Bangladesh 13th parliamentary election. An Australian delegation led by Dr. Annie Ali made the proposal at a meeting with Chief Election Commissioner A.M.M. Nasiruddin at Nirbachan Bhavan in the capital. This was mainly a courtesy meeting, but the Australian side said if there is any scope to assist the Commission in any way, we should let them know. EC Senior Secretary Akhtar Ahmed told reporters after the meeting. Akhtar Ahmed said the issue of people cooperation came up during the discussion, particularly concerning the misuse of technology and information. Anxious relatives of missing workers waited on Monday for news of their loved ones after a fire at a garment factory in Bangladesh and an adjacent chemical warehouse killed at least 16 people and injured others, and the death toll could rise. The fire broke out on Tuesday at around midday at a 4-story factory in the Mirpur area of the capital Dhaka, before spreading to a chemical warehouse storing bleaching powder, plastic and hydrogen peroxide, according to a fire department official. Firefighters, some equipped with hazmat suits, continued battling the flames at the warehouse on Wednesday. The fire chief said extinguishing the blaze fully could take time due to ongoing chemical reactions at the site. The blaze at the factory was brought under the control after nearly 3 hours on Tuesday. Relatives of missing workers gathered near the scene on Wednesday, some visibly distressed. A female student of Jahangirnagar University was killed after being hit by a speeding truck in Meherpur, Sadar Upazila this morning. The deceased was identified as Omi Khatun of village Ramadaspur of the Upazila. Officer in charge of Meherpur Sadar Police Station said Omi was returning home from her father-in-law's house with her husband on a motorbike when a truck hit the bike from behind at village Faridpur, leaving her dead on the spot and her husband critically injured. On information, police rushed to the scene and took necessary steps, the OC said, adding that the body would be handed over to the family following due procedures. Meanwhile, 2 people, including a child, were killed and at least 20 others injured when a passenger bus fell into a roadside ditch after hit by another bus in Bhanga Upazila. More than 12 people, viewers with More than 12 civilians were killed in Afghanistan as fresh fighting broke out between Afghan and Pakistani forces on Wednesday. The Taliban said returning a fragile peace that had briefly taken hold after weekend clashes between the countries killed dozens. Pakistan's unprovoked firing mortars 12 civilians, wounded over 100 in Spain Boldak. Afghan Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said on X, Pakistani officials blamed the Taliban for the clashes and said 4 civilians were wounded on their side of the border. Gunfire ranging out, plumes of smoke spiraled into the sky in Pakistan's Chaman district near the Afghanistan border. Viewers, we are taking a short break. Stay with us.
Luxury in Dhaka. সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় SA পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ 30 বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর SA পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। SA পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 Roberts Lane, Singapore 218302. Phone 0065 629 24900. বাংলাদেশ থেকে সিঙ্গাপুরে পণ্য বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন ঢাকা সহ দেশের যে কোনো 80টি শাখা কেন্দ্রে।
Welcome back. You're watching SATV News. 3 more bodies of Israeli hostages handed over by Hamas were identified on Wednesday, Israeli Prime Minister officials said in a statement. The slain hostages were identified as 20-year-old Tamir Nimrod, 35-year-old Uriel Bruncher, and 53-year-old Ethan Levy, who was missing for over 2 months after the October 7 attack. A fourth body that was handed over by Hamas overnight was yet to be identified. And Israeli media reported there were doubts it was of a hostage. Hamas has so far released 20 living hostages and 8 bodies under a US brokered deal to end the Gaza war, still keeping 20 bodies that the Islamist militant group has committed to handing over the under agreement. The bodies were returned after Israel announced it would cut to half the number of humanitarian aid trucks allowed into Gaza in a move to punish Hamas for what Israel called the militant group's violation of its agreement to transfer remains under the ceasefire deal reached last week. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that Hamas must disarm or the militant group will be disarmed. He also said that it will happen quickly and perhaps violently. The The US president made these remarks during a meeting at the White House. Trump also criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin during comments to reporters, saying the Russian leader is simply unwilling to end the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet President Donald Trump in Washington on Friday, where the two would discuss Ukraine's air defense and long-range strike capabilities.
He's got to really settle this war. And you know, they have long lines waiting for gasoline in Russia right now, right? They have long lines. Who thought that was going to happen? And all of a sudden his economy is going to collapse. And I'd like to, you want to play that game?
A U.S. strike on a boat off the coast of Venezuela on Tuesday killed 6 suspected drug traffickers. President Donald Trump said the latest such operation in recent week as the U.S. builds up the military forces in the region. The strike is the most recent example of Trump's efforts to use military powers in new and often legally contentious ways, from deploying active duty U.S. troops in Los Angeles to carry out counter-terrorist strikes in drug trafficking suspects. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the strikes had been carried out and against a designated terrorist organization, but he did not provide any details on which group. Intelligence confirmed the vessels was trafficking narcotics, was associated with illicit narco-terrorist networks, Trump said without providing evidence. Donald Trump endorsed Argentina's President Javier Milei in a social media post after their meeting in a White House on Tuesday. I hope the people of Argentina understand how good a job he is doing and will support his work during the upcoming midterms so we can continue to help him achieve Argentina's incredible potential, Trump stated in a post on his social media platform Truth Social. Trump and Milei were meeting at the White House just days after the U.S. agreed to provide a major financial lifeline to the South American nation. Peru President Jez swore in the first members of his cabinet on Tuesday, sending the most concrete signals yet about how he would govern. After vaulting into power last week following his procedures, Dina Boluarte, abrupt auster. Gary swore in Ernesto Alvarez, the former head of Peru's Constitutional Court. As his prime minister and head of the cabinet, Alvarez served as a magistrate on the court between 2007 and 2014. He presided over the body in 2012. Dennis Miralles, a former deputy economy minister with a market-friendly reputation, was sworn in an economy minister, while Jerry tapped veteran diplomat Hugo de Zilla, a former ambassador to the U.S., to his foreign minister. Earlier on Tuesday, Jerry said he planned to announce a cabinet that would prioritize combating a surge in crime, widely considered Peru's most pressing challenge.
El Consejo de Ministros, en la misma fecha de publicación de la presente resolución suprema.
Juro, si así lo hiciera, que Dios y el Perú lo premien, y si no, se lo demanden. Felicitaciones.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Tuesday he would appoint a military administration in southern city of Odessa, citing unresolved security concerns. Zelensky said that the move was discussed with the heads of Ukraine's security service, Vasyl Myluk. The announcement came hours after Zelensky revoked the citizenship of Odessa Mayor Hennady Trukhanov, whom the security service accused of holding Russian nationality. Trukhanov denied the claim, saying he is a citizen of Ukraine and vowed to challenge the decisions in Ukraine's Supreme Court, and if necessary, the European Court of Human Rights. Ukraine bans dual citizenship with Russia, and Trukhanov has faced allegations of holding both.
Я призначу керівника військової адміністрації. Був сьогодні на доповіді керівник Служби безпеки України Василь Малюк. Я дякую службі за сильну роботу на захист України.
NATO defense ministers gathered in Brussels on Wednesday for talks to discuss support for Ukraine and defending its border after multiple drone incursions across Europe. The session will focus on how to make our deterrence and defense even stronger. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said the ministers are expected to discuss an initiative for arming Ukraine. The prioritized Ukraine requirements list, which has been deployed by the US and allies to supply Ukraine with new weapons and those from US. Stocks using funds from NATO countries. Rutte, before the meeting with defense ministers, said that the military alliance and the European Union were working together in the efforts to set up a drone wall to protect member countries from drone incursions. Asked if they were doubling efforts, Rutte said the EU and NATO had different roles, with NATO providing capabilities on the military side and EU holding the soft part of the internal market and making sure the money is there. China's foreign minister said on Wednesday that trade wars and tariff war produced no winners, responding to US President Donald Trump's remarks on terminating some trade ties, with China singling out cooking oil. Both sides should resolve the relevant issues through consultations on the basis of equality, mutual respect and reciprocation. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said during a regular news briefing, the US president has targeted China with a cascade of tariff orders on billions of dollars worth of imported goods that he said he is aimed at narrowing a trade deficit, bringing back lost manufacturing and crippling the trade in fentanyl.
双方应在平等、尊重、互惠的基础上，协商解决有关问题。
At least 20 people died on Tuesday when a private bus in western India state of Rajasthan caught fire. According to local officials, the bus was traveling from Jaisalmer to Jodhpur with 57 passengers on board when smoke emerged from the rear of the vehicle. The driver stopped the bus along the side of the road, but flames engulfed the vehicle within moments. Reported a local media outlet, the police believed that a short circuit caused in the fire. The report added, 15 passengers, including 2 children, sustained serious burns injuries, with some suffering up to 70%. Madagascar President Andry Rajoelina was toppled Tuesday in a military coup that capped weeks of youth protest over poverty, power outages and lack of opportunities in the Indian Ocean island countries. Right after Parliament voted to impeach Rajoelina, who fled the country fearing for his safety, the leader of Madagascar's elite CAPSAT military unit said the armed forces would form a council made up of officers from the armed forces and Genadrim, a military unit that policies civilians and would appoint a prime minister to quickly form a civilian government. Before ending, we go through the headlines again. Quick election crucial to save people, says Muzaffarpur, urges not to create further division, raising demands for referendum and PR. Australia pledges continued support to EC ahead of election. Australian Minister for International Development calls on EC. Deadly clashes again at Pakistan-Afghanistan border. Over 12 civilians killed in Pakistan. Attack, says Taliban. You're up to date with our top stories so far here on SATV. And to know the latest news, visit www.satv.tv. Stay with us.